Hey, I'm Josh LaHaye, founder of CryoHeat Metal Treatment, and also the bearing kits and all the amazing parts that we have for the transmissions and drivetrains for Polaris UTVs. Let's go back about 5 or 6 years ago. I noticed that there was a major problem with the stock bearings in the transmissions for basically all the UTVs that Polaris sells. And what I started doing is case studies on the bearings themselves. These are ball bearing kits. Everybody sells ball bearing kits for these transmissions because that's what fits in the application. But with the helicoil cut gear, it is side loading the ball bearing. And what's happening is the ball bearing itself is not designed for a side load. So they wear out really fast and really easy, especially when the brand new bearings that you purchased in your brand new car are Chinese junk garbage bearings. So coming up to today, a lot of businesses are selling their bearing kits. And what I've noticed is a lot of companies are finding the cheapest bearing that they can find that fits that bearing size for the application. And for that, they're just looking for Japanese steel, Japanese ball bearing, and they're replacing it that way. We stepped up way beyond that, and I did case studies. Again, what I've done is I've actually cut bearings in half, did case studies, did a metallurgy analysis on the type of metals that we're dealing with a lot of different brands, checking hardness, checking grain structure, and learning that the Nachi brand bearings, which we sell a ton of, for our application, for a side-loaded bearing, it is 100% the very best bearing that you could buy. Now, that was about 4 or 5 years ago. Now here we are, 2022, gone through the first quarter of 2022, and we've been selling a lot of bearing kits, which is great, but I'm always trying to up myself or any other business. So right now, we're gonna up ourselves. I spent a little bit of time going online and checking prices, noticing that our prices are really, really reasonable. And then I've decided that I'm sitting on a little over $250,000 worth of bearings, and I want to move them faster. So being priced accordingly is one thing, advertising is another, but let's just sell the very, very best that anybody could possibly get. So as you know, or not, all of our bearings are CryoHeat processed. The CryoHeat process changes the molecular structure in a way by stress relieving the part, far beyond what the manufacturer already does, because they're not using the cryogenic process to stress relieve their products. They're only going through a heat treatment, the final steps, and putting it together and checking the parts, oiling them, bagging them up, and selling them. What we've done is literally spent over $250,000 on purchasing bearings. We have a large stock. We cryoheat all the bearings that we sell, and this makes them the shear strength and the tensile strength goes way up. Rockwell hardness is the same, but the really cool thing is when we're cryoheat processing materials, we're changing the molecular structure in such a way that it's able to dissipate thermal temperatures much better. So on a bearing that's in a race going around and around with a side load, in some of these UTV transmissions, we're looking at 150 to 200 degrees temperature difference compared to a bearing that is not cryoheat processed. So now that you got a little bit more of the scientific curve of what we're doing to these bearings and why we have chosen the Nachi brand bearings, they are some of the most expensive bearings out there to replace for these bearing kits. But because I've had such large purchasing power to buy so much, our price break is allowing us to still cryoheat process all these and still sell them for a discounted rate compared to other bearing kits or compared to just buying a Nachi brand bearing from Amazon or anywhere else. Ours are very expensive for that. I decided to step up the game. Everybody in the UTV industry is selling a ball bearing kit. I'm done. I'm done selling only the ball bearing kit. We are going to be sending you the ball bearing kit with our needle bearings as well. So this is approximately $50 worth of more bearings going into the kit for the same price. All right, so this one here is the this is the XP1000 bearing kit. So we're going to offer the needle bearings with that kit as well. This one here is the XP Turbo, the Turbo S up to 2020, not the 2021. This is just the XP Turbo, the Turbo S up to 2020, and for all the RS1s. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to offer the ball bearing kit with the needle bearings for the same price. Okay, now we're going into this new bearing kit that we're offering at CryoHeat. This is the Turbo S bearing kit. This is the 2021 Turbo S bearing kit. That's the only thing that it fits. And again, we're going to be adding the needle bearings to this kit. The difference between the Turbo S kit that is 2021 and all the other turbo kits is this guy right here. This is the 6232 bearing. Unfortunately, Nachi does not make one, but Koyo does. And this is an outstanding bearing. They're very expensive, but again, we bought like over 1,000 of just this bearing here itself. So our prices are still going to be really good. This bearing here replaces the 6206. This is the first bearing that goes onto the input shaft right behind the clutch. And this is a little bit of a bigger bearing. So the transmissions are the same. The bearing's different. The input shaft is different. And the left-hand side case is different to accept this size of a bearing. So again, all these three kits are getting the needle bearings in with the ball bearing kit. And then here is the Pro XP kit, and we're going to do the same. The Pro XP kit is a little bit more expensive than the Turbo kit just because there's some bigger bearings involved, and it's a couple dollars more, but we're going to be adding the needle bearing kit with the ball bearing kit, and the prices are going to be the same. Our prices are discounted almost 50% off on our website. So this is literally almost $100 worth of bearings right here, these three bearings. But again, I've purchased so many bearings. I just want to give back to the community and hook all you guys up with the most best, biggest, awesome parts that we could possibly think of. And adding these needle bearing kits to all the ball bearing kits, that's what we're going to do for the Polaris UTVs. All the RZRs, the Rangers, and the Generals. Here's the bearing kits for everything.